everyone, and welcome back to our final session of our This Is How We Grow Personal Growth Group Season 1, because there will be more seasons. This is Session 8, and today we're going to be discussing all the things that block us from growing and what we can do to try to overcome those things. First of all, I need to say that it's been a wonderful year, a wonderful season with all of you growing together, getting to know you better on Facebook through emails and comments on blog posts and different ways. I'm grateful for your participation. I'm grateful that you've joined me for this group, and I hope you'll stick around for our next season. And we're going to have a whole new topic, a whole new year, and more on that later. I also wanted to say that this video has come much later than I had planned because my life seasons have taken a turn again. I've been forced back into fall and winter, and I'm trying to get back into some spring and summer in my life again personally. As many of you know, a good friend of mine took her life as a result of depression just about 6 weeks ago, and it's been a real challenge for my family going back through a similar experience to what we'd already been through, the things that I've written about in This Is How We Grow. But I've been grateful for the support and patience of everybody as we've been going through this again, and that's what this group is all about. This group is all about having those resources available, learning the skills we need to overcome when those hard times hit again, and then when we start to come out to become our true selves and eventually to flourish. And so I am grateful for everybody's well wishes, and I want to say that we are doing very well right now, and we are definitely working our way back through the seasons of growth. But that is life. That is the way it goes, and it's not going to stop coming just because we don't want it to, right? So let's get started talking about those things that might block us from our growth. First of all, I want to ask you, what do you think are some of the blocks to personal growth? If we were to discuss kind of some of those things that you think get in the way of us choosing to grow or being able to grow even if we want to, what are some of the things that come up in your mind when I ask that question? I actually did my own personal growth, in-person personal growth group a couple months ago. And when I asked them that question, there were several good responses, many good responses. I'm going to read some of the list here. Fear definitely stops us. I have a great article on my website, drChristinaHibbert.com, called Fear Doesn't Prevent Good. Fear doesn't prevent bad, it prevents good. Fear definitely stops us from good things. And that's what fear is really all about. So fear, our self-esteem can get in the way. You know, I write a lot, and we've talked a lot about self-esteem and self-worth in this group here. That's something that can definitely get in our way. To-do lists. We're so focused on our list and what we have to do or what we should do that we actually don't let ourselves do the things that are the most important. And that's a good question. Does our to-do list match up with those things that really matter most? Labels, like we've been given a label that I have depression, or I am grieving, or I am this or that. And so we fit into that label, and we feel like maybe we don't really take the opportunities to grow and realize that we are not those labels. We are not those things. Negative thoughts can definitely stop us. We've talked about thoughts a little bit here in this group. Expectations from ourselves and from other people can definitely prevent us from growing, can stop us from either wanting to grow or thinking that we can grow just because of what people think of us. Anxiety and depression and other kinds of mental illness and physical illness can also prevent our growth. If we're not well, it's really hard to want to then take it to the next level and try to grow. Codependency, being too dependent on other people and just doing what they want us to do or what they need instead of realizing our own needs. Maybe sometimes it's really not our time or season for growth. Sometimes it's, we really are in a busy time and we want to grow, but we know it's not time yet. And sometimes the season that we're in can make it hard for us to grow because we just don't want to be there. And so we struggle with that, and we fight what is. So let's see here. Lack of direction and purpose. Our environment can certainly do that. Sometimes we want to grow and then things keep happening. This is kind of how I've been feeling lately, is I was doing pretty well and I was progressing and I was making the growth that I wanted to, and then bam, it gets slammed again with another loss, which for me has been kind of my main theme of my life, it seems like, is death and loss and grief. So here we are again, and for my kids too. And so, those kinds of life, just happens, and it can slam us again and prevent us from growing in the ways that we want to. Although we really are growing, even though we keep getting slammed, we are still growing. It's just sometimes it feels like it's preventing us from the growth that we really wanted. And some self-talk. What are we saying to ourselves? What do we tell ourselves about ourselves? Do we say that I can't do that it's not possible for me to flourish, that I can't overcome this problem? What kinds of things might hold us back in that sense? And finally, a lack of self-care. If we're not taking care of ourselves, if we don't know how to prioritize our needs or even think that those needs are realistic or possible, then it's going to be very hard for us to grow. So that's a pretty good list from the members of my group, and it's been such an honor working with them in person this whole year, and really these past 4 years. I can't believe that come this fall we will be starting our 5th season of our personal growth group. And some members, only a few, have been with me all 5 years, but we're always full. Even if people leave, new people take their place just as quickly as they go. So I'm really grateful for all of you choosing to grow with me. So I wanted to talk about this today because I do think it's important for us to acknowledge that it's not always easy. We have these seasons of growth. We understand now better that there is a reason for every season, that there is something to learn from every season. But that doesn't always mean that it's easy to get through, or that it's even possible to get through the seasons in the way that we want to, or to find the growth that we want to find. So I want to focus on 5 specific things that I feel really get in our way. And of course, this list could go on forever. I just gave you a really long list. I'm going to talk about 5 in depth, and I want to keep the video short enough, but think about for yourself, what are the obstacles to your growth? What prevents you from growing? What stands in your way? I personally have been thinking a lot about that because, like I said, I feel like I'm back into this fall and winter, and maybe trying to emerge into a spring. Feels kind of jumbled this time around, I have to say. There are moments of summer in the midst of it. And I wrote about this on a blog post, which I hope you'll check out, called Life, the Battle, and the Beauty. Because even though we're battling in life and hardships happen, a lot of times there are beautiful moments happening at the same time, and it feels so paradoxical. I've talked about that in my book, This Is How We Grow, how there's that paradox of life, and we want to choose one or the other. Am I in a battle, or am I seeing the beauty of life? And what I'm saying is that we can keep both, because both are there. And so even though, right now I'm in another battle time of life, or, those harder seasons of fall and winter, I've also had these spring and summer moments that have been really lovely. Like This Is How We Grow won a book award from the Independent Publishers Book Award, the IPPES, and I got to go to New York and accept that award, which is a great honor for me and for this book. And also, have been honored. The book has been honored in some other ways. My son graduated from high school, and we're into summer now. I'm outside and enjoying a beautiful day to wrap us up at the end of this year of personal growth group, because it's summertime again and weather's perfect, and we get a break from this routine of the school year. So, there are beautiful moments even amidst the hard times, but I want to acknowledge that even though we want to grow, even though we're trying, even though we're going through the seasons, there are some specific things I feel really get in my way and really get in all of our way. So these are the things that I want to talk about today. There are 5 things, like I said. First is physical factors and self-care. Then we'll talk about motivation and determination, and how that can play such a huge role in our ability to grow. Third, overcoming the failures. So when we aren't growing like we want to, do we quit or do we keep going? Fourth, perfectionism, which we could have spent, the whole season just talking about perfectionism, but we're going to touch on it just briefly. And 5, the self-criticism and judgment. I really feel like we hold ourselves back so much more than anything else most of the time. So let's start with the first, self-care. Self-care to me is sort of that bottom layer. I wrote an article about this on drchristinahibbert.com called The 3 Layers of Self-Care. And you can check that out. But it's kind of like self-care to me is kind of that bottom layer, that necessity, that what I call the absolute necessity self-care. That if you don't get that first, you can't reach any of those other higher levels of self-care. And it's really hard to grow. Think about it. If you're completely sleep deprived, if you're sick completely sick or ill, if you are, not taking care of your mental health, all of those things significantly impact your ability to focus on your personal growth, right? I mean, for me, they definitely do. So I want to teach about what I have found to be one of the best ways for me to kind of get a great overall picture of my own self-care and what I need to do to be taking care of myself and to remember it simply. And this is from a great book called Women's Moods by Deborah Sichel and Driscoll and Jeannie Driscoll. And it's been around for years, probably, I think it was published in 1999, but it is fabulous. If you are a woman and you have moods, you should definitely go and check out this book. And in this book, they talk about this program called Nurse. And I've used this for years and years. And when I teach about postpartum depression, we teach about Nurse. And when I teach about self-care, we talk about Nurse. So Nurse is just an acronym, NURSE, of course, and it stands for the following. N is for nourishment and nutrition. So again, we're talking about self-care. Are you getting proper nutrition? Are you taking care of your body? Are you putting foods into your body, enough water into your body that makes you feel energized and healthy and well? Or are you defaulting into junk food, into sugary foods, caffeine, all of these things that are, alcohol, drugs, these kinds of things that are harmful to the body, and not only harmful to the body, but really do take away from our clarity and our ability to focus on what we want for ourselves, to be our very best. So nutrition is part of it, but also nourishment. Like, are you nourishing yourself with food, with care, with love, letting yourself receive all the nourishment that you need personally? And again, that's a personal decision or focus. Everybody has different needs for nourishment and nutrition. So think about you, and that's your N. Am I getting enough nourishment and nutrition in my life? U, for the U of Nurse, is understanding. Now, we're doing a lot of that understanding here. If you've been doing any of the exercises, if you've been following these videos and focusing on the things we've talked about in your life, then you are finding understanding. Other ways to find understanding might be to go to therapy and talk about some of the things you've been through or some of the challenges you're having and get a new perspective. Or to talk to a friend or family member about your situation, your difficulties, your seasons, and see what they say. I've been doing a lot of that lately. And I'm actually back in therapy with my same psychologist that I wrote about in This Is How We Grow, because boy, he helped me through it the first time, and now he can help me through it again. And also, I am trying this time around to really reach out a little bit more to friends that I know understand and really get it and can give me the kind of insight and advice that I need because they know me. And that's what I'm talking about. So those kinds of people in your life can really give you that understanding. Journaling, I'm a big journaler. I journal all the time still to find that understanding. So it's really important for us to understand where we've been, where we are, where we're headed, and to keep reevaluating like we're doing here in this group. R is for rest and relaxation. Now, I love that it's not just rest, but sleep is crucial to our mental health, our emotional health, our physical health, our spiritual health, and to our personal growth. If you're exhausted, you are simply not going to be able to achieve the kinds of things that you would otherwise in your personal growth development. So it's important to get enough sleep. And if you're not, ask yourself carefully, am I getting enough sleep? If not, make it a number one priority. I mean, it really has to be there in order for all the other things to fall into place. But also it's relaxation. So it's not just about sleeping and then just run all day long. It's about finding quiet time to relax, to have a little fun, to rest, to enjoy life. Because that's why we're here. We're not here to just work all the time. And the truth is that play and relaxation really do help us, achieve more in life, feel happier, more joyful, have better relationships. I mean, it really helps us overall in our personal growth. Okay, so NURS. S is for spirituality. And I'm a very spiritual person. I find it very important, crucial actually, to focus on my spiritual connection each and every day. And I do that every morning through my hour of power by scripture study, prayer, meditation, pondering, journaling, things like that help me feel closer to God. Now, whatever your belief is spiritually about God and your higher power, spirituality is a necessary part of our personal growth. So it's important for us to connect with our spirit, to connect with that something greater that helps us to remember that it's not just about what we think, but there's a bigger plan, there's a bigger purpose for our lives, and that's an important part of our spiritual growth. So do whatever you need to do to connect spiritually and ask yourself, am I doing that? Am I taking care of my spiritual self? And finally, E is for exercise. And I'm also a big proponent of exercise. I actually used to be an aerobics instructor for a lot of years, and exercise is just one of the best. Exercise and sleep are, I say, the two best things you can do for your mental health. Getting enough sleep and getting regular exercise for your physical and mental health are so crucial, and it really does help us to grow better when we take good care of ourselves. So that's just one quick, simple method for taking good care of ourselves, doing proper self-care. So you can just think nurse. You can kind of go through that in your head if you memorize that, and check in with yourself at any given time and see how you're doing. So we must take care of ourselves, otherwise it definitely will stop us from our personal growth. That's number one. Number two, as I said, is motivation and determination. And to me, this is just talking about our mental and emotional state. Kind of, when we're not in the proper mental and emotional state, when we don't have the right dedication or motivation, it really is impossible to keep growing. We have to have those things in place for us to keep on making the progress we want to make. So here are the questions I ask you about that. Number one, is this the right time and season for me to be trying to make this change? So for instance, if we're in a winter and we're trying to get out there and do a summary kind of thing, really, for instance, if I were trying to suddenly go and really embrace my speaking career in a really wintry time in my life and get out there and, be sharing myself with the world and making all kinds of videos, they're not going to turn out as well as I would like. It's probably not the best time for me to be trying to do that sort of thing. So maybe I get through my winter, I work through what I need to do, and then I go back to, then I can work on other goals in different seasons of life. So sometimes it's just not the right time. Also, if you think of your lifespan, sometimes it's not the season of your lifespan that's right for what you're trying to do. For instance, a young mother with young babies who wants to focus on her career and is trying to, but can't, and feels frustrated all the time. Well, maybe that's not the right goal for this time of your life or this season of your life. So ask yourself, is this the right time and season for the thing I'm trying to change or the thing I'm trying to grow in? Number two, first of all, if it is the right time of your life or the right season for you to be working on this, then examine your approach. Look at the time of day or week that you are trying to set the goals and achieve them. Maybe you just need to tweak it. Maybe you're trying to work on your personal growth when, at the end of your workday when you're exhausted, and you really should be doing it in the morning and prioritizing waking up just a little bit earlier, even though it's hard to get up early, because that's really what you need to help you. So if we're looking at motivation and determination, a lot of times it's really an energy issue, or kind of a time or day of the week that works best for you. So really look at your life and your schedule and figure out, when is my optimal learning and growing time? For me, it is definitely in the morning. I'm a morning person. If I wait till later in the day, I usually don't have the energy to do what I need to do. So I definitely know I need to do it first thing in the morning, or it's probably not going to happen. So figure that out for you. And then, it's baby steps. We have to take these little tiny steps. And remember that it doesn't have to be, you don't have to suddenly be motivated and dedicated for, growing into your optimal, the optimal person you want to be for forever and ever and ever. What you need to do is set little tiny achievable goals that can help you keep your motivation, so you don't feel like you're sort of getting held back by this thing called failure. So get that long-term vision. Start to look at, that bigger picture of what you want for yourself, and then break it down into smaller pieces to help you keep that motivation and determination going. The other thing that I think is helpful when we're talking about motivation and dedication, motivation is all about pain and pleasure. And so we're either motivated by pain, like avoiding pain, or achieving something pleasurable. And personal growth is pleasurable. When you find yourself growing and improving, it's very pleasurable. It brings out the joy in you. It's a wonderful thing. Also, it helps us avoid painful things in our life. Now, the interesting thing is that people are more motivated by avoiding pain than by seeking pleasure. So look for ways in your life to kind of inspire you to grow. Maybe instead of giving yourself a pleasurable goal at the end, you get to remove something painful if you are, sticking to what you want to do. If you can see that maybe, for instance, losing weight, it is painful to lose weight, but it's more painful to not fit in your clothes, to be unhealthy, to perhaps not be around because your health is so bad that you might not be around for your children long term. You've got to find a way to find that pain in your problem that becomes more unbearable than the pain of the growth, right? Because growing is kind of painful too. And that's where we find the true motivation and dedication that sometimes we're lacking. And let's face it, sometimes we're just not ready for a certain problem or issue. And I've given myself that that leeway in my life many times where I really, really want to change something. I really want to grow in a certain way, and I'm trying and it's not working. And I can tell myself, you know what, this is not the right time for me to do this. So, use these things to kind of think about how motivated am I and how dedicated am I? Am I doing these lessons that we've been doing? Am I working on the things that I've been asked to work on outside of these lessons? Or am I just always having an excuse and putting it off? And, what's really getting in the way of my motivation and dedication to my own personal growth? Because it's so important that we choose to grow and we continue to grow throughout our lives. Okay, next, let's talk about overcoming the failures and self-criticism and judgment of ourselves. I think they kind of go together. So I think one of the biggest blocks is that we do, tell ourselves we can't do it, or we don't really believe it. We want to believe it and we say we believe it, but do we really believe it deep down? And so one thing that holds us back is we're afraid to fail. And sometimes it's that we're afraid to succeed. But again, fear is good for nothing. It really only prevents the good things in our life. It doesn't prevent bad things from happening. It only prevents good. So I hope you will read more about my article on fear on my website for more on that. But one thing I think really helps is to redefine failure. If we're afraid of failing, if we criticize ourselves when we do fail, which I think is another huge block, is that, change is a spiral. We talked about this in lesson 2. It's not just a steady progression. It's a spiral. We spiral up, we spiral back down. Remember that spiral change has 6 stages and steps. If you missed that, go back to lesson 2 and you can learn more about that. And most people, research shows, spiral up and back an average of 6 times. So failure is part of the change and growing process. It's not failure in and of itself. It's not a dead end. It's part of the process if we continue to see it that way. So if we look at failure as, okay, this is another step. It's another time to step back and reevaluate what's going on in my life. It's not a failure. It's not a dead end. I mean, if I were looking at this recent loss in my life as a failure, like, man, I'm grieving again. I didn't learn anything the first time around. And, that makes no sense, right? Because, of course, every time a new loss happens or something else happens like that, we're going to grieve it and we're going to go through it again. That doesn't mean that we failed. But it does mean it's a time to step back, reevaluate, and figure out how to move forward in a way that's going to get me where I want to go. And that's something I just recently posted on in my article called When Life Hands You Lemons, Stop and Reevaluate. Because guess what? Sometimes it's good to make lemonade because you need something quick and sweet and easy. But sometimes the easy way out is not the best way. And maybe we need to plant those lemon seeds and grow some lemon trees so we can provide lemonade for our family and friends and everybody whenever we need it, right? There are other ways to continue to grow. And we need to stop the judgment and the evaluations of ourselves that hold us back. So get clear on that. Think about it. What kinds of thoughts, what kinds of judgments and criticisms do I have of myself that are holding me back from my personal growth? Sit down and write about it and get honest with yourself, because once you see those things, then you can start to tackle those things and really take care of them so that they don't hold you back any longer. And right along with this whole idea of overcoming failure and overcoming this self-doubt and criticism is perfectionism. I think that goes right along with these things, because I think a lot of us have, if we're not a total perfectionist, we have perfectionistic tendencies or thoughts. Not everybody does, but a lot of women do. And so if you're one of those, It's definitely something we need to keep a tab on and listen for, because it can stop us in our tracks like that. Perfectionism is, it's deadly. I want to share a quote from Brene Brown. I saw her speaking once, and this is what she said. She said, what perfectionism really is, if I look perfect, live perfect, work perfect, I can avoid or minimize criticism, blame, or ridicule. So when we're focusing on looking, acting, or doing perfectly in our lives, then we're really trying to just avoid criticism, blame, or ridicule. But guess what? We know, and we've talked about already in This Is How We Grow, that our growth is dependent upon our vulnerability. We have to be vulnerable enough to see what's wrong with us, to see what's going on, to see the truth of how we are, to see all these things, and to really let ourselves feel what we feel, and, open ourselves up to challenges and opportunities that might feel like rejection and criticism and failure. But if we live our lives trying to just avoid blame, criticism, and ridicule, what kind of life is that really? Instead, we have to stop living to avoid things and focus on living to receive all the great blessings that come from choosing to grow. She also says that when perfectionism is driving, shame is always riding shotgun, and fear is the annoying backseat driver. So our perfectionism goes straight along with shame. Again, that shame, that fear of being ridiculed, of not being good enough, of all those shameful things from our past coming back out to haunt us. And this is definitely something that can be very deep in some of us. And if it's something that's a deep issue for you, I really recommend seeking some counseling, some therapy for that, to help you work through those issues, those painful issues, because they can run very deep and cause a lot of havoc in our lives. Let's see. And one last quote from her on this, because obviously she's said a lot of great things about this, is authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen. And that's really what This Is How We Grow is all about, my book, what this group was all about. It's about, instead of living to avoid something, live to be authentic. Live to be real. I mean, to me, that is the best compliment when someone says, "You're so real." I love that. That's probably the best thing people could say to me, because I don't want to not be real. What is not real? It's fake. It's not real. It's no good. And it definitely prevents our growth. We cannot grow until we get real with ourselves. And that has to do with, overcoming the self-doubt, the self-criticism, stopping the perfectionistic behaviors, and seeing failures as stepping stones on our path to something even better down the road. Okay? So before we wrap up, I want to talk just a little bit more about that authenticity piece, because it's so important. And I want to share a little bit about that I wrote in This Is How We Grow, to remind us of why we need to focus away from perfectionism and focus on being authentic. Even if you're not a perfectionist, this is important. We cannot be a perfectionist and still not be truly authentic in our life. Because we might be fearful or have other blocks in our life. So we need to learn how to let down our guard and be real. That's what, again, this group is all about. And I wanted to add that if you are working on perfectionism, I refer you to my article on perfectionism on my website, 8 Ways to Overcome Perfectionism, on drchristinahibbert.com. So this is from This Is How We Grow, and in my chapter on Discover Authenticity, page 270 and 271. So what is perfect anyway? A dictionary tells us it means without faults. The media tells us it means looking, doing, or being the very best. However, research tells us perfectionism has nothing to do with self-improvement or being our very best. Perfectionism instead hampers success. In fact, it's often the path to depression, anxiety, addiction, and life paralysis. Instead of perfectionism, what if we strive for being authentic, for being complete? That's what the Greek translation of the word perfect actually means, according to Aristotle: complete, so good that nothing of the kind could be better, and that which has attained its purpose. When we seek to attain our purpose, to fulfill our internal standard of life and who we must become, we live authentically. We are complete. And I believe in being complete, in discovering who I really am, striving for authenticity, and making right choices that help me feel whole. Seeking to do right, to be complete, to live authentically is the opposite of perfectionism. We open our eyes to what is real instead of striving to be something that is not. The more we work on living authentically, the easier it becomes to recognize our crossroads of right and wrong, to make healthier choices, and to feel more complete. And I know that is a fact. The more we focus on being complete, now that's so different than being right or the best or good enough, right? Focus on being complete. That's what that root word of perfect actually means. Can we focus on that definition instead? And can we focus on being complete to help us overcome these challenges that we face that stop us from our growth? If we can have that broader focus of just trying to be authentic and complete, I think it's a great help to us in our personal growth process. Now, I want to again thank you for this year that we've had together, this season that we've had together. It's been such an honor to share some of the things I've learned with you, to get to share a little bit of my book, This Is How We Grow, with you, and to get to learn from you along the way. I've been really impressed with everything that you have taught me and how you've supported each other and how you have chosen to grow and continue at it even though life keeps handing us all these lemons. You know, why can't life stop being so lemony sometimes, right? But we still can continue to grow and to make something of those lemons, even if it's not lemonade, maybe even something way better. So I just want to close our season here with one of my favorite quotes of the whole book of This Is How We Grow, because really this is about, we just talked about being authentic and complete, and that's what personal growth is all about. That's what this group is all about. It's about focusing on wherever we are in life, whatever season. We've talked about all the seasons of growth, falls and winters and springs and summers of life, and figuring out where we are and letting ourselves go through it. And I think one of the biggest pieces to letting ourselves go through that is to focus on connection with those we love, connection with ourselves, because a lot of us are not connected with who we are, with how we feel, with anything about ourselves, and especially connection with God and our higher power, so that we can receive that instruction, that insight, that wisdom that we lack, that we can receive that support, that comfort, that strength that we need in certain seasons, and we can receive that that encouragement, that acknowledgement, that drive and desires, those good desires that we want to have in our times of summer and spring. And I know that to be a fact, that as we connect with God, that as we bring that spiritual connection into our lives, as we connect with those in our lives that we love, as we receive and give that love that we've talked about in these other lessons, that is really what growth is all about. Spiritual growth, we've talked about that. The definition of love is to love somebody is to want their spiritual growth just like we want ours. And so hopefully that's what we're doing here. That's what this group is about. So to close, let me read from my final chapter on Flourish on page 401. I know there is a grander, simpler, masterful something out there for each and every one of us. There is a path of flourishing. The trick, however, is to make sure we don't stop our journey before we discover it. When we tap into that something, that path, when we continue to work, turning our face to the sun, when we will flourish. It's what's waiting at the end of each seasonal cycle of growth, just like summer. And aren't we at the end of a seasonal cycle of growth, this whole season of personal growth group? That's what turning our face to the sun really means. Living with purpose and intent. Seeking the light in all things, allowing ourselves to flourish like summer, and letting the sun do what it does best, warm us up and help us grow. That is my hope for you, that you will let the sun do what it does best. You will turn your face to the sun, receive that light and goodness, and let the sun do what it does best, warm us up and help us grow. I really hope you will join me back here in the fall of 2014, or if you're seeing this video later, you can check on YouTube for more videos from our season 2 of our online personal growth group, which is season 5 of my in-person personal growth group. And I'm not positive exactly what the topic's going to be yet, but I will give you a hint that I'm pretty sure we're going to focus on something that will help us to be more authentic and also discover our mission and purpose and fulfill that in our life. Something that I feel very passionate about, that I've been working a lot on, and that I feel a lot of others are looking forward to. Until then, enjoy your seasons of growth. Be where you are, accept it, embrace it, love it, and receive all that love around you and give it back in return. Keep that cycle of love complete. I'm grateful for all of you, and I'll see you next season. Bye, everybody.